and welcome and very good morning. My name is very obvious, and the reason I'm here is also very obvious. So I'll get to the presentation very quickly. And before that, thanks for the organizers to have expressed their interest in the topic. It is a little heavy in some aspects, which we'll talk very honestly, hopefully today. And next 60 minutes, my plan is to talk for about 42 minutes and leave 18-20 minutes for question and answer session if you have. And before I begin, let me acknowledge that I come from the lands of Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Dakota, and the peoples and on the homeland of Métis Nation. And we believe in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, this very idea that I came up in 2018 when I was doing my postdoctoral research. But eventually I ended up with a project to Public Safety Canada, Community Resilience Fund, and we were very happy to have it approved in 2020, but COVID struck and then we were delayed a year. So in 2021 actually we started, and here's the name of the project as it appears in the public safety website. So after a year or so in the project, we kind of thought that it should be more generic in approach. So we renamed the project, and now it looks like this: Extremism and Radicalization to Violence Prevention in Manitoba, in short ERA. So this is how we are operating now, and this is a 3.5 years project, and this is really important and very close to my heart. Today I thought of following some of the steps just to explain the idea itself first, and then what we are doing and why are we doing it. So I'll give a brief context, and context is super important for the project and for the research itself, because extremism and violence is nothing new in our human history. Actually, the history of Homo sapiens, as Professor Noah Reilly in his famous book, Homo sapiens, A Brief History of Mankind, mentions that after the cognitive revolution, when we started telling stories, and we all are good storytellers, the mothers, they tell stories to the children, and the adults, they do tell stories throughout their life stages. So this is why context is important, and I have just brought a couple of slides just to share with you what really triggered my imagination and inspiration behind this project. And of course, number 3 and 4, very important, because this is what we are trying to achieve through the project at the end of its life cycle in 2024. To start with, a brief background, because oftentimes we are blamed to overblow the issue, and to some extent we do understand. And one of the reasons is that we want to draw attention of all of you, so that you support us, you give us money, and oftentimes we are also blamed to waste the money. I'll show you an exact example when I was doing this project in a couple of slides down the road. However, right after my graduation from University of Manitoba, I started thinking about intervention more closely and more intensely. Because one of the reasons that we have so much of research going on to understand the why aspect of the terrorism, extremism, violence, radicalization, etc., since Mr. Laden and his team did this research in 2001. So we poured millions of dollars in so many countries across the board to understand why Bin Laden and his ideologues have done such things. And then it evolved until 2016, and then the extremism landscape changed. But this is what drew my attention, that what actually people are doing to stop it. So I ended up with a self-funded research, and with a team of 2 more professors from the US, and we are presenting actually a paper in Hawaii, Manoa University, and there we connected, and we started studying around 8 countries, 29 projects, but particularly those projects were named and have the title of community, either community focused, community based, community driven. because the idea of community is very interesting for me. And throughout my PhD research also, I was exploring how a community is formed, why it is formed, who belong to this community, and what they do. So this is the idea behind this project. And we interviewed 29 project leads, managers, and influential people in 8 Western countries about their ongoing or past projects. And it's a fascinating collection of ideas, narratives, motivations of those 29 persons. And we published a book later on, and there I started to learn that teachers are often marginalized. In the good old days, teachers were the source of clarification of any social issues. Students, young minds come and ask teachers in the classrooms at various stages, primary, tertiary, middle to high schools, university, community colleges, about their anxiety of a social issue. But since 2001, proliferation of technology, etc., teachers are marginalized. Whatever the teachers are saying in the class, students quickly check through their devices. If the teacher is saying something, they don't like to believe it. So that was the key takeout from this particular research. And then what happened? I built upon these ideas and I applied for a postdoctoral fellowship. And I was very fortunate, I would say, very, very fortunate to have short postdoctoral fellowship. Then I refocused my studies in the city that I live in the province that I live in. And I call it pedagogical intervention. Because once again, my focus is teachers. My focus is educators at all levels. What they do, what they want to do, what are their fears and challenges. And I met many of them, many inspiring teachers, and that is what I wanted to tell you this morning. It is not about the gloom and doom and all this extremism situation that we are going through, but it is about the stories of those teachers, educators that have inspired me to do more work in this area. One particular teacher I still remember and would like to share with you this morning. She was actually teaching, or let's say, an adult learning education. She was a teacher, and Mr. Aaron Driver, I don't know if you have some idea of this particular case. Anybody, does this name sound anything? Aaron Driver? Okay, some nods. So I'm not going into those details, but she was the teacher with Mr. Aaron Driver. And in some of the colloquia and seminars, she was there, and I asked her, what was particular about Mr. Aaron Driver? Why did he choose to travel the path of destruction, self-destruction? And as some of you are aware, Mr. Aaron Driver wanted to commit a mass suicide bombing in Toronto, Ontario. But he comes from Winnipeg, and he was an early convert. So she told me 2 things. Mr. Aaron Driver was a very docile student. There were more, because it's an adult education class, there were more, let's say, aggressive students she had in those classes. But Mr. Aaron Driver was the most gentle, most docile, most attentive student. He never even argued about the social political issues that was going on in 2015 and 16 throughout Canada. As you might refer, ISIS recruitment, the peak of ISIS campaign, foreign fighters, etc. And second thing, she said that, I wish I could do more. So these 2 takeaways really motivated me, that what we could do more as teachers, educators. I teach in both the universities as a part-time adjunct professor. So I do have students, I do interact with them. I do teach a course in the University of Winnipeg since 2019, special topics in geopolitics, terrorism and counterterrorism. So I have had over 70 students by now. It's a senior level course for a year and so. So they ask me questions of so many interesting things that is going on in our world with regards to extremism. And that is how the motivation came for the intervention through education. So, it's a cliche maybe, very typical things that you see in the media and all these things. So I started talking about my project back in December 2021, and between 21 and March, I was being interviewed by most of the major networks in our country and across the globe, especially US and Europe, New Zealand. Especially New Zealand has expressed a lot of interest in this idea and project. Mr. Ambassador was very kind to have a couple of sessions with us. So I started talking and it came out in the news. If you're interested, you can find my interviews, and if you just Google Professor with the Toolkit, that will give you a quick lead to the links. But what happened actually is to share with you this morning that after those were published, I received around 420 plus emails. Not any one of them was encouraging. Not a single one. A couple of branding the authors did, leftist, anti-fascist, Muslim, and taxpayer money wasted. So these are the four brands that I kind of achieved after March 2022. That gives me an indication that this topic is really important, and I really want to do more on these topics. And particularly, it is important that the social polarization that we are going through is real. And since I come from Winnipeg, we often say that nothing happens in Winnipeg unless 25 meters of snow and Colorado lows. That is not correct, ladies and gentlemen. More things happens in Winnipeg than Manitoba. Yeah, these are. So, let me, as I said, context is important. But today, we have, as I said, we have written extensively, worked extensively on this topic. But today, I just wanted to briefly share with you. I find eerie resemblance with the ideologies of anarchists in late 19th and early 20th century. It's really a very disturbing resemblance. I intentionally brought a slide. Fall in line, make way for brotherhood, establish justice. This really caught my eyes because I was also talking to a couple of news media after during this Freedom Convoy movement back in February, and there were signs absolutely similar these texts that I got in our province, because our province was also subjected to Freedom Convoy movement. So there is a resemblance of historical continuity of support of violence and extremism for various causes. These are political, right? Emma Goldman, then the Leon Gonzalez, all were political. They wanted to do something to hit back at that time, the political regimes, the rise of left, communism, etc. And exactly after 100 years or so, we do see an echo of a massive scale anti-government feelings that triggered in the COVID lockdown and continued. Ladies and gentlemen, the hearing in Ottawa, which is going on for over, I think, a couple of weeks now, if you listen carefully, both sides, the government and the other side, their justification of violence, and on the other side, from the government side, to stop the violence, it is super interesting because some of the things directly echo to the anarchist ideologies. During our project, the first year of project, this case happened in the US. And this morning I'll just talk about the uniqueness of this case. Mr. Peyton Brandon did kill a lot of children, innocent children. Well, you might say that, forget about US, we are not US. We don't have violence in schools at that scale. Yes, true, we don't. We are fortunate, we are happy. But there is a very underlying connotation of how a person who has seemingly no record of anything in the past can transform, which we call radicalization, to violence abruptly, and then goes on doing something horrible and horrible. The new about our time from the past can be summarized in these 4 sentences. Now, it is super easy to build a community of ideological warriors. Whatever ideology, political, religious, environment, etc., etc. It is easier, far easier, to create a WhatsApp group, to create a Facebook community, and ask people that come and join and do something. It's super easy now. It takes only minutes. Legitimization of violence is also super easy because you just try, text what Mr. René Camus, I'll show you very shortly, said about replacing white folks in many of the Western nations. And then you exactly see, oh my God, this is what I was thinking about, and I need to do something. Same thing happened when Brenton Tarrant attacked New Zealand Christchurch Mosque, because he read from the same book. And both these gentlemen, New Zealand and here, they wrote extensively about their ideas, what they call manifesto. These are available online, believe me. I have own copies of this because of my research interest. And now it is also super easy to prepare for violence, because you have Google Maps, because you have Home Depot website, because you have Canadian Tire website, and people recommend whatever you want to see. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to ask anyone. You can do it yourself. DIY. This is different in our society. Moving on with the gentleman, he did talk to his classmates about his intention. He did, explicitly. A teacher noted it and brought to their attention. This is our main target of this project. If a teacher, educator comes across something, then what to do? Can we do something? Can a teacher take some actions to stop it? In this case, nothing happened. Ladies and gentlemen, just read quietly what he said in his manifesto before he attacked. He said, I read, "The truth is my personal life and experience are of no value," which we call grievance. People think they don't have values, what they espouse, what they live by. They are marginalized, fringe. If you watch the posters of Freedom Convoy movement, thousands of them, very closely, which I did, you'll find this word. We are not fringe. Exactly, we are not fringe. We are mainstream movement now. And this is what compiles in the grievances when somebody feels that he or she doesn't carry it. Then I'm simply a white man seeking to protect and serve my community, people, culture, and my race. Keywords. Maybe he copy-pasted from someone, I don't know. But this is what he exactly said in his manifesto. 6 chat rooms, one particular person, his name is Sandman, pseudonym. When FBI kind of analyzed, we see that he was guided, inspired, motivated, even at the last minute, just 1 hour prior to attack, by somebody using pseudonym Sandman. This is the phenomena that we are going through now. This happens across the cases, all the cases. As I said, as I promised, this is a very dominant theme in today's discussion of far-right and extreme-right movement. René Camus, when he wrote about replacement theory, it quickly gained momentum in many of the Western nations. And people took up arms, ladies and gentlemen, literally, to kill others because they strongly believe in the replacement theory. Fox News, Tucker Carlson, always talks and refers about this particular theory. Couple of Manitoba-based photos. We never heard, as I say, nothing happens in Winnipeg, Manitoba. But look at this truck trying to climb the stairs of Manitoba legislature. Very unique case. We all know you cannot drive a truck up to the entrance and do something, but this is somebody trying. Then you have Mr. The leader of the base, one of the recruits of the base from the forces, Patrick Matthews. Then you have Proud Boys gathering, a person from Winnipeg driving to Ottawa, trying to do something in Prime Minister's home, and quite a large context of it's okay to be white posters and movements. In our country, the Quebec mosque shooting, and some of you might be aware what we are facing nowadays is a lot of storytelling. Going back to my earlier comments, remarks of cognitive revolution, expounded by Mr. Hariri, Q is the symbol, is the idea of stories. Just bizarre stories, totally bizarre. But people do believe. People believed in the US and across the board that Hillary Clinton, then Microsoft's owner, Bill Gates, are child traffickers. They do believe, thousands and millions of them. And they have interned children, it's famously known as Pizzagate event, that underneath in the basement of a pizza shop, children are being hidden for trafficking, and Hillary Clinton and her affiliates are engaged. And then Q evolved. So there are so many stories now. We just call them conspiracy theories. Then you have very interesting person, Romano Tidero. How many of you are aware of her? And how much do you know about her, sir?
The Queen of Q, right?
Yes. Queen of Q and Queen of Canada. Self-proclaimed. We might laugh, we might scoff, another nonsense. But I view it that she has over 20,000 followers. Ladies and gentlemen, 20,000 followers. How many followers you have in your social media feed? 1,000. You see, 10 times of her, and she is a decent lady, talking good things, doing good things. Look at her and look at her. How do you explain this phenomenon? Very difficult. And don't undermine. In Peterborough, people had to be arrested, literally arrested, because this folk, he strongly believed that she's telling the truth. Only she's telling the truth. And the problem of truth is our problem of generation now. We don't know what is true. Do you know the truth? If you even tell your students, they'll quickly challenge. How come, sir, you are telling this thing and I find another thing? And the problem is when a student finds another thing, he or she doesn't know that whether my one is correct or his or her version of the truth is correct. And of course, it goes back to 2016, Mr. Trump, who famously coined alternate truth, not by himself, his followers. Quickly, a couple of slides. In Manitoba in 2018-19, we have seen a series of school closures. And these are all kind of fake here, but it happened very rapidly, one in each month sort of thing. And school had to be laid off, it triggers a protocol. 2-3 days, many of the schools were off. Then we started seeing posters or written notes coming out in the University of Manitoba, in various halls. It's okay to be white, quote unquote. And this particular issue was brought to our attention by a teacher because he had one student in his class putting on a white t-shirt for over 2 weeks with this slogan. Most interesting fact, the particular student is from indigenous background. And the teacher was really confused what to do and what to do with it. So he shared this story, and he's in my team now. And we are trying to find out how to deal with these things. You can't go to the parents. The school administrators say, manage. It's your problem, just do something. We are not interested. It has a racial, this angle. So this happened. Oh, Soros is common. Again, Soros issue, lost white civilization, so many graffitis, which was unprecedented in the history of our city. As I said, we are very quiet, peace-loving, pacifists, an unprovocative group of folks living in praise. Brandon Courthouse, I was present myself just to understand. Brandon is a small 50,000 population based city west of 230 kilometers west of Winnipeg. But the interesting case is these young fellows wanted to join ISIS. And he was picked up by the law enforcement agencies, trial because he was underage. I was there because I wanted to understand the motivation of the young fellow. I'm not happy to report I have not understood nothing what he said in his defense. Aaron Driver, a convert, dedicated his life to support ISIS, young fellow. He was put in under a peace bond and then he was released because he didn't commit any crime, and that is the problem again in our law enforcement and other areas. You can't charge anyone if the crime has not happened under the Criminal Code of Canada. Islamophobia still continues to some extent. How many of you have some idea about the base? Any idea about the base? None? This is an interesting case happened again in our city. The base is a neo-Nazi movement founded in America. The founder was a defense contractor who created an army of followers, those who believe in the elimination of folks, those who do not follow them or do not belong to the superior race, quote unquote. This is the symbol they used. And in one day I was going back to my home and I saw a poster just in front of me, put up in a lamppost. This is the one I'm referring to. And I thought it's a poster of Fringe, drama. I know we have a Fringe festival every year. So I thought somebody is trying to get some audience in Fringe. So I looked closely. And lo and behold, the symbols. Do you have any idea what this symbol stands for? Anyone? These are runic alphabets. Runic alphabets of 16th century in Europe. And this has particular meaning. Superiority, race, and violence. So this base, the neo-Nazi group, started recruiting people from our city. And the first recruitment was done, Sergeant Patrick Matthews. The case was resolved in America, and so on and so forth. And another angle of violence is directed towards Antifa groups. It was Antifa, which was kind of popped out through North America and Europe in response to fascist movement, i.e. they call it, because these groups are very, they have very small things to differentiate themselves. Very important, very critical. Extremism in the ranks of law enforcement agencies, including Canadian Armed Forces. Number of reports have been done. Dr. Barbara Perry from Ontario Tech has been appointed to conduct a full-scale research about the extent of extremism in the Canadian Armed Forces. And many or some of the Manitobans are seeking public office, those who are openly racist, homophobic, and they want to create an ethno-state. For example, a small city mayor contender, and he had those things in his posts. Finally, a night before, he decided it's not a good idea to contest for mayoral elections. We were subjected to freedom convoy actions, the closure of border. I was contacted by a BBC producer just over a month ago. It was a very interesting email followed by a Zoom meeting, because I was skeptical about the source of BBC, so I requested a Zoom meeting, so she came and all. She asked me that, Ahmed, since you are in this area and you research on these issues, do you know a person named Aisha, very common Arabic name, Aisha, in your city who returned from Syrian jail, an ISIS widow? We want to interview her and all these things. I said, no, I don't. But let me check. So I took another couple of weeks to check my sources and friends and families. I also couldn't get the proper result. But this is happening. People are coming back from many of the Syrian prisons, and Canadian government has some protocol in place. But what I'm interested about, what they have to tell us, how they will tell their stories, how they will be treated in our societies. This is important because people will pick up their stories, whether we like it or not. So, summary. What we see now, faith-driven extremism, a case in Steinbach, Manitoba. The whole church was mobilized against the government, whole church. Politics and extremism, case of PPP. There were a lot of posters in our city, in our province, with extreme racist remarks. Case of Diagonal. How many of you are aware again? Sorry, I'm once again going back to you just to see how much you are aware. Do you know Diagonal, Jeremy McKenzie? Any idea? A podcaster. Very interesting discussions. If you search, you will find some of his podcasts still hanging. So he started podcasting. Of course, the group is called Diagonal because if you see North American map, he plotted what are the states and provinces have lax COVID rules, not much lockdown, etc. And he found out trend that it is exactly a diagonal line across the North America. So hence the name Diagonal. So he started podcasting 2 years back. He shuttles between New Brunswick and Edmonton, and he became quickly popular in that area because there is an echo chamber of extreme right groups. And he was one of the organizers of Freedom Convoy movement in Ottawa, and he was a public figure. And our senior politicians in federal level have selfies with him, and trying to understand and support his ideas. And one of the political leaders eventually denounced him because after a couple of days he said that very tough words against his spouse. So if you again search, you will find what is uttered. So when it came to the news, the federal political leader, he quickly denounced and tried to stay far from him. And of course, lastly we see trans-border influence. I presented a case in University of Manitoba. We typically call it brown bag, just academic discussion. So there I display an analysis from the money that was raised in Freedom Convoy things from two platforms. One is Gives and Go, and second one is GoFundMe. So you might be interested in my findings maybe. They raised $18.7 million within 2 weeks. $18.7 million they literally raised. And within this 18.7, $4 million were released to their fellow mates in the protest, and then government intervened through FinTrack, and the transaction was cancelled. But $18.7 million, and somebody sent me an Excel sheet with over 10,000 people donated in this campaign. A detailed Excel sheet that I have received, and I just wanted to see how many people from Manitoba participated. But at the end, a lot of money, and which is possible in today's world. That is the key takeout. Nature of extremism and violence may be categorized broadly that we are targeting in our project. Fascist movement, alternate right, anti-Semitism, Islamist, and anti-government. These three major trends that we see and we aim to deal with it. This is also super interesting in our situation. Hate. A very personal thing. You hate me, I hate back. So what is the good? What is the big deal here? Doesn't matter. I don't love you. I don't care. That's all. Individual. But nowadays it is not individual. It's a collective thing, expression of hatred. A very collective thing now. Search it at your own time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested. You will find lots of statistics. These two statistics was used by Dr. Barbara Curry of UNESCO Hate Chair now, teaches in Ontario Tech. And look at these graphs from 2017-2020. But remember, folks, that these data that we are showing here is the ones reported only to the police are seen. So that is the drawbacks of this data. What we see is maybe 1/10 of the reported hate crime or hate issues. Maybe, I don't know. That's an assumption. And category-wise, race, ethnicity still remains the number one, group of hate and hate-related crimes in Canada. And actively we started plotting, I think since 27, the alleged hate crime reported to law enforcement. Before that, we don't have any data, nothing. So, more than 120 incidents Dr. Barbara Curry noted in a book when she published since 1980. And she also shows mass murders from extreme right because she is an expert in the study of extreme rights in Canada, a leading scholar in our country. So according to her, look at these statistics. And also, you don't have to go through all the small details, just imagine these broad varieties of extremism. So many varieties, so many groups, and who's telling what, for what purpose, is so difficult to understand. Hence, intervention. However, we do in our project, and subsequent slides I'm going to talk about our project. So in our slide, we do adopt a working definition of radicalization, which has been shared by Montreal-based Center for Prevention of Radicalization Violence, CPRLV, funded by federal government and Montreal provincial government. So this is our working definition. But in our project, we invited the teachers, educators to come up with their own definition. And today, because our work in progress, I couldn't bring it to you, but within a couple of months, we'll release our toolkit and you will find our own way of understanding radicalization to violence. There is no consensus how you define radicalization to violence. There is no consensus. And that's a good thing, actually. It's not bad. So we're not trying to be elected on this platform. So we don't need any consensus. But what we need is to understand, come to a common understanding of what is radicalization to violence. We also follow a very simple step of the process, what we call grievance, ideas, needs, people, and violence. Violence is common output, and rest are all factors. And this model is not ours. Peter R. Newman from Europe, he published a book in 2017, and he came up with this model. And the problem in our areas is that there are too many models, too many, because the ideas and phenomena is very individualistic. The way Mr. Brandon Tarrant was radicalized is not the same with the others, Aaron Driver and others. This is very different. However, generally there is a process. The time gap is very less or long, but nowadays it is very less from decision of carrying out something horrible and the actual commitment of violence. This window is getting shorter and shorter. That's what our research says. You might be wondering, well, is it your unique idea or your group's unique idea? No, it's not. As I said in the beginning, extremism is very old phenomenon. I just went back 100 years. I didn't, take you back to the destruction of King Solomon's temple and the rise of the groups, Israeli groups, those who defended from a fort. I didn't go there, just 100 years. So intervention is nothing new. But closer to our idea, what we find in the UK And under the PREVENT program, the federal PREVENT program, they do have something called channel. But it's one of the horrible models that I've ever seen and come across. Why? Because they asked teachers to report of suspected radicals from their classes. Even UK government went, much further to instruct the health workers in NHS to report any cases of radicalization. The horrible part. Thousands of cases were referred to channel program, and 98% were found, or let's say, were unfounded. Because in the next step, the other bodies intervened and checked and whatever. Unfounded, over 98%. Now, before Liz Truss, before Rishi Sunak, before Boris Johnson, or during the Boris Johnson time, review started taking place about this program itself. But something with the teachers, that's what is my point. So, here we are, and I'll just only say that beyond literacy and numeracy, that is our slogan. We want to talk to our educators so that they do something more than teaching. I do connect with students, grade 8, 11, and 12. This was just last week before I came here. I spoke in J.H. Burns, and the interesting part is, this is what I actually want to achieve, to talk to them directly with these issues. And during the Q&A period, some of the students really shared their good, bad, ugly ideas with me. And one particular young woman told me that, "Sir, am I an anarchist? You have heard my stories. What do you think? Am I an anarchist?" I said, "Wow, congratulations, because you have somehow gotten into this concept of anarchism. So let's discuss what is anarchism and what is not." This is what is very important in today's scenario, because we don't want to talk about these things. We think it is politically incorrect, dangerous, and it might lead to something else. One of the aspects that we thought is important for us to do, because our educators, they have three-way challenges, as you see on the screen. They're hesitant, they feel they don't have any expertise, and they might start controversies, and finally, they are not supported. It's absolutely based on our research back in 1819 and in this particular project. They don't feel supported, and they are hesitant. And ladies and gentlemen, in this age, we have symbols. These groups, the groups use tons of symbols, tattoos. For example, Sonnenard is used. It's called Black Sun, used by most of the neo-Nazi groups in Europe and Americas. And soldiers put a tag in their uniform with Sonnenard. But Sonnenard is directly linked to extreme right-wing groups in Europe in the past. So if a teacher watches and sees a tattoo of Sonnenard, he or she doesn't have any clue what this means. No clues. And we have compiled, still compiling over 650 such tattoos and symbols in our project. This slide just gives you a summary why we are interested in primary intervention. Our whole IDEAS project is about primary intervention, because we all know what is tertiary and secondary, but we know less about primary intervention. Digital connectivity is the key aspect of our age. And through this age, what we found, that the evolution of extremism and violence, a decade from 2001, then only 5-6 years between 11 and 16, rise of ISIS, foreign fighters, and then 16 and 19, extreme right, and then from 19 onwards during the COVID, another trend of violence and extremism. So this is why digital connectivity is very important in our project. We use a metaphor of tree in this project, just to say that we are very grounded. We believe in strong roots, therefore primary intervention. We believe from these strong roots, strong branches will emerge in the future, which can take all the odds of lives. And project framework, 3 stages. In first stage, we started consulting with educators, hundreds of them. We had held around 16 such consultation meetings throughout the province, mostly Zoom. And during this project, the educators and stakeholders both came together. So educators, those who are in service or retired. Stakeholders means parents, guardians, school administrators, law enforcement agencies, and community groups. So these are 2 distinct categories of people, those who are working in this project. And it has 3 stages, so we are in the second stage now. We are finalizing our tools, and it will come out publicly as a toolkit and guidelines how to use certain tools in order to counter extremism. And in this stage, we are going to run 14 workshops throughout the province, reaching out to more educators and share our ideas. So we are targeting around 15,000 plus students, K to 12, in our province, so that we can reach through their educators. We are not going to talk to them directly, rather through their educators. These are the project goals and deliverables, and the toolkit is our main product. But in order to come to this main product, we have followed all these things. And importantly, our aim is to give knowledge, share knowledge with the educators so that they understand the phenomena of extremism, what they are dealing in the classrooms. We are working on an app because during our discussion, what transpired is that how do I communicate with someone authentic to understand it's a problem or not a problem? So this communication channel is not there. A teacher might talk to an administrator, might talk to a friend, might talk to someone else. But again, there is a problem of legitimacy. Who knows? Who's the expert here about this symbol, about this particular incident, about the slogan? So we are trying to develop a direct communication among the educators and us. So an app naturally comes to our mind. So we are developing it. And of course, we are not in the business of reporting at all. We don't believe in reporting. What we believe in observing. What we believe in bringing these observed reports, informations and knowledge and synthesize and go back to the educators with the result. This is what we're doing. It's a constant feedback loop, which is very important. We have found out through our experience in this project. We go back and back and back, number of times. Did you say that? Did you mean that? Do you want to do that? What is your suggestions? And we have problems in our project headquarters. Okay, we don't want to do it. Maybe there is a problem, have a third opinion sort of thing. It's a constant feedback. In 2023 and 24, we'll have national gathering together. I will invite most of you, and please do come and watch yourself a beautiful city of Winnipeg and Museum for Human Rights. So we'll invite you to talk, share, and listen to you more because it's a part of our feedback. So two such national and international events are coming up. The main challenge at the end of the day, what I wanted to tell you is that bringing people together, because we have diversity. We have diversity of opinions about this topic. So first challenge is to bring people together. List, we have connected these groups. Some of them actively are involved with us in consultation. All are volunteers. And that is the most hopeful part of my adventure here. These people are volunteer. They don't even want to receive honorarium, even if I force them sometimes. Keep in touch, ladies and gentlemen. We need support from you too. I know there are so many bright minds in our room today, this morning. So many of you. Please keep in touch. Let me know if you're interested. We are very interested to talk to you. And that is the part of the job I'm trying to do today, this morning. We have a webpage, quite a repository of things, and you can always find us in Twitter and all these things. And finally, let me tell you one thing this morning. Together we can defeat extremism in all shapes and forms. Together. And I mean together. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kausa. I look forward to seeing the toolkit when it's ready and learn a bit from it. So at this moment, I just want to remind our participants that we will be heading to the expo hall for our refreshments, and Lindsay will also be there for a book signing if you are interested. So thank you so much, and a warm applause to Kausa.
Thank you, and I was not following the clock, so the Q&A session slipped, but if you have any questions, please do forward. You have my email addresses and locations. Thank you once again for being with me. Thank you. Oh, good.